Maya sat in the corner booth of Romano's Italian restaurant, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched her small worn purse. Inside that purse was $5.37. That was it. That was all the money she had until her next paycheck, which was still 4 days away. She shouldn't have agreed to this blind date. But her coworker at the grocery store had been so insistent, going on and on about how this guy was perfect for her, how he had a good job and came from a nice family, how Maya deserved to have some fun for once instead of just working all the time. The truth was, Maya worked 2 jobs just to keep her tiny studio apartment and put herself through community college. She stocked shelves at the grocery store during the day and waited tables at a diner 3 nights a week. Romance felt like something that happened to other people. People who had time for it. People who could afford it. But here she was wearing her only nice dress that she'd bought from a thrift store 2 years ago, sitting in a restaurant where even the water glasses looked expensive. Her stomach was growling. She'd skipped lunch to save money, thinking her date would probably order dinner. That's what people did on dates, right? The minutes ticked by. 5 minutes late, then 10, then 15. Maya checked her phone for the 3rd time, wondering if she'd gotten the time wrong. No, it was definitely 7 o'clock, and it was now 7:17. Maybe he wasn't coming. Maybe this was all some kind of joke. She felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment at the thought. Just as she was about to leave, a man in an expensive suit walked through the door. He looked around, spotted Maya, and walked over without smiling. "You're the blind date, right?" he asked, not even bothering to introduce himself properly. "Yes, I'm Maya," she said, standing up to shake his hand. He barely touched her hand before pulling out his phone. "Cool, I'm David. Sorry I'm late." Work stuff. He didn't sound sorry at all. He sat down and immediately started scrolling through his phone, not even looking at her. Maya sat back down slowly, a sinking feeling growing in her stomach. This was already not going well. A waiter in a crisp white shirt appeared at their table with 2 leather-bound menus. Maya took hers with shaking hands and opened it. Her heart dropped straight to her feet. Every single item on the menu was expensive. Really expensive. The cheapest thing she could find was a side salad for $18. $18 for some lettuce and tomatoes. The entrees ranged from $30 to $60. She felt sick. "Order whatever you want," David said without looking up from his phone. "I'm thinking about getting the steak." "The $45 one." Maya's mind raced. She couldn't let him pay for an expensive meal for her. That felt wrong. But she also couldn't admit that she'd come to this date with only $5. The humiliation would be too much. She could already feel tears stinging her eyes. "Actually, I'm not that hungry," she lied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe just a side salad?" David finally looked up from his phone, but only for a second. "Suit yourself. More food for me, I guess." At the table right next to them, literally just a few feet away, sat a man and his young daughter. The little girl looked about 6 or 7 years old with pigtails and a bright pink dress. She was coloring on the back of a kid's menu with crayons while her father watched her with a gentle smile. The man looked to be in his mid-30s, dressed casually but nicely in dark jeans and a button-down shirt. There was something kind about his face, something warm in his eyes as he helped his daughter stay inside the lines of her coloring page. "That's beautiful, sweetheart," he told the little girl softly. "You're getting really good at staying in the lines." "Thanks, Daddy." The girl beamed up at him. "Can we get spaghetti? And can I have chocolate milk?" "Of course we can," he said. "Whatever you want, princess." Maya couldn't help but overhear them. They were so close, and the contrast between their table and hers was almost painful. She glanced over and caught the man's eye for just a second before quickly looking away, embarrassed. David's phone rang loudly. He answered it without excusing himself. "Yeah? Oh, hey, bro. What's up?" He stood up from the table. "Hold on, let me take this outside. I can barely hear you." And just like that, he walked away, leaving Maya sitting alone at the table. She stared down at the menu she couldn't afford, feeling smaller and more worthless by the second. The little girl at the next table whispered something to her father, and Maya saw him glance over at her. She wanted to disappear. She wanted to sink into the floor. Here she was, a 24-year-old woman who couldn't even afford a salad, abandoned by her date at a fancy restaurant. She blinked rapidly, trying not to cry. "Don't cry," she told herself. "Don't you dare cry in public." Her stomach growled again, loud enough that she was sure the people at the next table could hear it. She pressed a hand against her belly, mortified. David came back after what felt like forever but was probably only 10 minutes. He sat down without apologizing. "Sorry about that. Work thing," he said, though he didn't sound sorry at all. He flagged down the waiter. "Yeah, I'll have the ribeye steak, medium rare, with the loaded mashed potatoes and the grilled asparagus." The waiter wrote it down and turned to Maya. "And for you, miss?" Maya's mouth went dry. Her heart pounded. Everyone was looking at her. David, the waiter, and she could swear even the father and daughter at the next table were listening. I'm still deciding," she managed to say, her voice shaking. "Take your time," the waiter said kindly. But Maya could see the slight confusion on his face. The menu wasn't that complicated. David checked his watch. "Can you hurry up? I've got another meeting at 8. Another meeting. At 8 o'clock at night. On a date that he'd shown up late to." Maya felt something inside her crack a little more. She was about to just order the cheapest thing and figure out how to deal with it later, when something unexpected happened. The man from the next table stood up. His daughter held his hand as they walked over, and Maya's confusion mixed with her embarrassment. "What was happening?" "Excuse me," the man said, his voice friendly but with a hint of something urgent in it. "I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I think we've met before." "Maya, right? From the Cedar Community Center volunteer program." Maya stared at him, completely confused. She did volunteer at the community center every Saturday, reading to kids who struggled with literacy, but she'd never seen this man before in her life. What was he talking about? His eyes met hers, and something in his expression made her pause. He was trying to tell her something. Trying to help her somehow. Yes, she said slowly, not understanding but willing to play along. The man smiled warmly. "I thought so. I never got to properly thank you for all your work with the children's literacy program. You spend every Saturday there, don't you? Reading to the kids?" David barely looked up from his phone. "That's nice. Anyway, Maya, what are you ordering? The waiter's waiting." The man from the next table kept talking, and Maya realized he was giving her an out. She just didn't know why. The stranger kept talking, and Maya felt like she'd stepped into some kind of alternate reality. His little daughter stood beside him, looking up at Maya with big, curious eyes. "Listen, this is awkward timing," the man continued. "But Maya, I've been trying to reach you. Our foundation wants to hire you as a coordinator for our literacy expansion program. It's a full-time position starting at $65,000 a year with full benefits." Maya's jaw dropped. $65,000? She made barely $22,000 working 2 jobs. This couldn't be real. This had to be some kind of mistake. But the man pulled out a business card and held it out to her. Before Maya could take it, David snatched it from the stranger's hand. David's entire face changed as he read the card. His eyes went wide, and suddenly he was sitting up straighter, smoothing down his suit jacket. "Wait, you're Alexander Chen?" David's voice went up an octave. "The Alexander Chen? CEO of Chen Technologies?" The stranger, Alexander, apparently nodded politely. "That's me." "Oh man, oh wow." David was practically vibrating with excitement now. "I work in finance." "David Holloway, Holloway Investments. I've been following your company's growth for months. The IPO was incredible. Your stock performance has been insane." He thrust his hand out for a handshake, completely forgetting that Maya even existed. Alexander shook his hand briefly, but didn't seem particularly interested in continuing the conversation. "Nice to meet you," Alexander said. "Maya, my assistant Linda will call you tomorrow to set up a time to discuss the position. We'd really love to have you on the team." He gave Maya a small, knowing smile and walked back to his table with his daughter. Maya watched them go, her mind spinning. What had just happened? Was any of that real? "Why didn't you tell me you knew Alexander Chen?" David hissed at her, suddenly paying attention for the first time all evening. "Do you have any idea how connected he is? Do you actually volunteer with literacy programs? Is that job offer real?" Maya felt something shift inside her chest. Looking at David now, seeing how his entire attitude had changed the second he thought she might be useful to him, made everything crystal clear. She'd spent her whole life being invisible to people like David, people who looked right through her, because she worked retail and lived in a tiny apartment and wore thrift store clothes. People who only saw her when they thought she could do something for them. "I don't actually know him," Maya said quietly. "And honestly, David, I don't think this is going to work out." "What? Come on, don't be like that." David's voice took on a wheedling tone that made Maya's skin crawl. Let me buy you dinner. Get the salmon. It's supposed to be really good here. We can talk about how you know Chen. I told you I don't know him and I'm not hungry. Maya picked up her small purse and stood up. Her legs felt shaky, but she forced herself to stay steady. Thank you for meeting me, but I need to go. Wait. David grabbed her wrist, not hard but enough to make her stop. Can you at least introduce me to Chen properly? I have some investment opportunities I'd love to pitch to him. Just 5 minutes of his time, that's all I need. Maya pulled her wrist free. Goodbye, David. She walked away from the table, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. As she passed Alexander's table, she caught his eye. He was cutting his daughter's chicken into smaller pieces, being patient and careful. The little girl was chattering away about something that happened at school. Thank you, Maya mouthed silently to him. Alexander gave her a small nod, and something in his expression made her feel like maybe, just maybe, there were still good people in the world. Maya pushed through the restaurant doors and stepped out into the cool evening air. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It should have been beautiful, but all Maya could think about was the mess she was in. She walked to the bus stop and sat down on the metal bench. That's when reality hit her like a punch to the stomach. She'd used her last bus tokens to get here. She had $5.37. The bus required exact change, $2.50. She could take the bus home, but then she'd only have $2.87 left. For 4 days. 4 days until payday. Or she could walk. It was about 6 miles to her apartment. In the dark, in her only nice shoes that were already giving her blisters. Maya put her face in her hands and let herself cry. Not big sobs, just quiet tears that slipped between her fingers. She was so tired. Tired of struggling, tired of working so hard and never having enough. Tired of men like David who only cared about what she could do for them. She heard footsteps approaching and quickly wiped her eyes, trying to pull herself together. But when she looked up, she saw Alexander and his daughter standing there. Maya? Alexander's voice was gentle. Are you all right? I'm fine, Maya said automatically. Then she laughed, but it came out bitter and broken. Actually, no. I'm not fine. That was the most humiliating experience of my life. And I'm sorry you felt like you had to rescue me with that fake job offer. You don't owe me anything. It wasn't fake, Alexander said. Maya blinked. What? The job offer. It's real. The Chen Foundation has been looking for a literacy program coordinator for 3 months. We've interviewed a bunch of people, but none of them felt right. He paused. You really do volunteer at Cedar Community Center, don't you? I saw your name on their volunteer board last month when I made a donation. Maya's mouth fell open. You? You actually know I volunteer there? The little girl tugged on Maya's sleeve with a small hand. Do you really read to kids? What's your favorite book to read? Despite everything, despite feeling like her world was falling apart, Maya found herself smiling at this sweet child. I do read to kids. My favorite book is Where the Wild Things Are. What about you? I love that one. The girl's face lit up. My daddy does funny voices when we read it. He makes the wild things sound really silly. Alexander cleared his throat. Listen, it's getting dark. Can we give you a ride home? And I'd actually like to talk to you about the coordinator position. I really do mean it. Maya hesitated. Every survival instinct she had was screaming that this was too good to be true. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. I don't have any qualifications, Maya said. I'm just a community college student working 2 jobs. I don't even have my degree yet. Why would you want to hire me? Alexander looked at her for a long moment. Can I tell you something? My wife passed away 3 years ago, cancer. Before she died, she ran literacy programs in neighborhoods where kids didn't have access to books or tutors. She always told me that the best people for these jobs weren't the ones with fancy degrees from expensive universities. He paused, and Maya could see the grief still there in his eyes even after 3 years. She said the best people were the ones who showed up every single week because they genuinely cared about making a difference. The ones who gave their time even when they didn't have much time to give. Alexander met Maya's eyes. So yes, I'd like to talk to you about the job, and right now I'd like to make sure you get home safely. Please. Maya felt tears threatening again, but this time they were different. Okay. Thank you. They walked to the parking lot together, the little girl skipping between them and humming a tune. Maya expected to see some kind of fancy sports car or luxury vehicle, the kind that CEOs on TV always drove. But Alexander led them to a regular sedan, maybe 4 or 5 years old, with a car seat in the back. There were picture books scattered. On the floor, a stuffed elephant in the back window, and what looked like dried Cheerios stuck in the cup holder. It was the car of a real parent, not someone trying to impress anyone. Sorry about the mess, Alexander said as he opened the back door for his daughter. We're always running late in the mornings. I like mess, the little girl announced as she climbed into her car seat. It means we're having fun adventures. Maya got in the front seat, and as Alexander started driving, she gave him directions to her neighborhood. She felt self-conscious about where she lived. The area wasn't dangerous, but it wasn't nice either. Old apartment buildings with peeling paint, chain-link fences, corner stores with bars on the windows. The little girl started talking from the back seat, telling Maya all about her school and her teacher and her best friend who could do a cartwheel. Maya found herself relaxing as she listened, asking questions and genuinely enjoying the conversation. And I'm learning to read chapter books now, the girl said proudly. Daddy helps me with the hard words, but sometimes I get frustrated because there are so many words I don't know yet. That's completely normal, Maya told her. Every good reader was once exactly where you are. The secret is to keep practicing and don't give up. You know what I do with the kids I tutor? When they find a word they don't know, we turn it into a game. We try to guess what it means from the other words around it. That sounds fun. Can you show me? For the rest of the drive, Maya and the little girl played word games. Alexander stayed quiet, but Maya could see him smiling in the rearview mirror. When they pulled up in front of Maya's building, she felt embarrassed all over again. The building looked worse in the evening light, with one of the security lights flickering and graffiti on the side wall. This is me, Maya said quietly. Thank you so much for the ride, and for what you did back at the restaurant. I've never had anyone stand up for me like that before. Everyone deserves respect, Alexander said firmly, especially someone who spends their free time helping others learn to read. Maya reached for the door handle, then stopped. Did you really mean it about the job interview? Alexander pulled a phone from his pocket and tapped on it a few times. What's your number? I'll have my assistant Linda text you tonight to set something up for this week. Maya gave him her number, hardly believing this was real. He typed it in, and a moment later her phone buzzed in her purse. That's Linda's number, Alexander said. She'll call you tomorrow morning to schedule a formal interview. But between you and me? He smiled. I think you're exactly what the foundation needs. My wife always said you can teach someone procedures and policies, but you can't teach someone to care. You already have the most important qualification. Maya felt her throat get tight with emotion. I don't know what to say. Thank you doesn't feel like enough. Just come to the interview with an open mind, Alexander said, and bring your ideas. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how we can expand the literacy program to reach more kids. Maya got out of the car and waved goodbye to the little girl in the back seat. As she watched them drive away, she stood on the cracked sidewalk in front of her building and tried to process what had just happened. 3 hours ago, she'd been sitting in that restaurant with $5 to her name, being ignored by a man who couldn't be bothered to look up from his phone. Now she had a job interview at a real foundation, with a real salary, doing work she actually cared about. It felt like a dream. It felt like the kind of thing that happened in movies, not real life. Maya walked up the 3 flights of stairs to her studio apartment. The elevator had been broken for 2 months. Inside, her apartment was tiny. Just one room with a small kitchen area, a bathroom barely big enough to turn around in, and a mattress on the floor because she couldn't afford a bed frame. But it was clean. She made sure it was always clean, and the walls were covered with pictures drawn by the kids she tutored, thank you cards from their parents, and quotes about education and hope that she'd printed out and taped up. She sat down on her mattress and pulled out her phone. Sure enough, there was a text from a number she didn't recognize. "Hi Maya, this is Linda Chen, assistant to Alexander Chen at He Chen Foundation. Mr. Chen asked me to reach out regarding the literacy program coordinator position. Would you be available for an interview this Thursday at 10 a.m.? Please let me know. Looking forward to meeting you." Maya read the message 3 times. Then she typed back, "Yes, I'm available. Thank you so much. See you Thursday." She set her phone down and lay back on her mattress, staring up at the ceiling where there was a water stain in the corner that her landlord kept promising to fix. Her stomach growled again, reminding her that she still hadn't eaten dinner. She got up and went to her tiny kitchen. In the cabinet, she had 1 can of soup and half a box of crackers. In the fridge, she had some eggs and a little bit of milk. This was supposed to last her until Friday. Maya heated up the soup and ate it slowly, making it last, thinking about everything that had happened. She thought about David and how quickly he'd changed when he thought she knew someone important. She thought about Alexander and his kindness, the way he'd helped her without making her feel small or pitiful. But most of all, she thought about the job. $65,000 a year. She did the math in her head. That was more than double what she made now. She could quit both her current jobs. She could focus on finishing her degree. She could maybe even save money for the first time in her adult life. But she couldn't let herself hope too much. Not yet. The interview was still days away. What if she messed it up? What if she got there and they realized she wasn't qualified? What if this was all some kind of misunderstanding? Maya finished her soup and washed the bowl, then pulled out her laptop. It was old and slow, but it worked. She started researching the Chen Foundation, reading everything she could find about their programs and their mission. If she was going to do this interview, she was going to be prepared. She was going to show them that even though she didn't have a fancy degree or experience running programs, she understood what mattered. She understood the kids she worked with every Saturday. The ones who struggled to sound out words. The ones whose parents worked 3 jobs and didn't have time to read to them at night. The ones who thought they were stupid because reading was hard. Those were her kids. And if she got this job, she could help so many more of them. Maya worked on her laptop until midnight, taking notes and preparing ideas. When she finally turned off the light and lay down to sleep, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, things were about to change. Thursday morning arrived faster than Maya expected. She'd barely slept the night before, too nervous about the interview. She got up at 6, even though the interview wasn't until 10, because she wanted everything to be perfect. She showered and washed her hair twice, then stood in front of her tiny closet, trying to figure out what to wear. She didn't have interview clothes. She had her work uniform, some jeans, a few t-shirts, and the dress she'd worn on that disaster of a blind date. Finally, she settled on black pants she usually wore to her waitressing job and a simple blue blouse she'd bought at a thrift store. She looked at herself in the mirror and tried not to feel discouraged. This was the best she could do. The Chen Foundation offices were downtown, in a nice building with a real lobby and a security desk. Maya took the bus, making sure to leave extra early in case anything went wrong. She arrived 45 minutes early and sat in a coffee shop across the street, going over her notes one more time. At 9:50, she walked into the building. The security guard checked her ID and gave her a visitor badge, and she took the elevator to the 8th floor. Her hands were shaking as she pushed the button. The elevator doors opened to a bright, modern office with big windows overlooking the city. A woman in her 50s with kind eyes and gray hair pulled back in a bun stood up from the reception desk. "You must be Maya," she said warmly. "I'm Linda. It's so nice to finally meet you in person." Linda led her down a hallway past offices and meeting rooms. Maya could see people working at computers, having conversations and laughing together. The whole place felt welcoming, not cold and corporate like she'd expected. "Mr. Chen is just finishing up a call," Linda said. "Can I get you some water? Coffee? Tea?" "Water would be great, thank you," Maya said, her voice coming out smaller than she intended. Linda brought her to a conference room with a large table and comfortable chairs. Maya sat down and tried to calm her racing heart. Through the window, she could see the city stretching out below. She'd never been in an office this nice before. A few minutes later, Alexander walked in and Maya stood up quickly. He was wearing a suit today, looking every bit the CEO, but his smile was the same warm one from the restaurant. Maya, thank you for coming, he said, shaking her hand. Please, sit. Let's talk. But before they could start, the door opened again and a little face peeked around it. Daddy, is it lunchtime yet? It was Alexander's daughter, the same little girl from the restaurant. Not yet, sweetheart. Remember, Daddy has a meeting? Alexander said gently. The girl looked at Maya and her whole face lit up. It's you. It's the reading lady. She ran into the room and hugged Maya before anyone could stop her. Maya laughed, surprised and touched. What are you doing here? Maya asked. It's teacher planning day at school, Alexander explained. So she's hanging out at the office with me today. Lily, let Maya breathe, honey. The little girl, Lily, stepped back but kept grinning. Are you coming to work here? Please say yes. We can read books together during lunch. That's what we're talking about today, Alexander said. But Lily, you need to go back to Linda's office now. We have grown-up talking to do. Lily made a disappointed face but nodded. Okay, bye, Maya. I hope you say yes. She ran out of the room, her shoes making little tapping sounds on the floor. Alexander shook his head with a smile. Sorry about that. She's been talking about you nonstop since Saturday. Apparently you made quite an impression. She's wonderful, Maya said honestly. She is. She's also the reason I'm so passionate about this literacy program. Alexander sat down across from Maya, and his expression turned serious. When my wife got sick, Lily was only 3. She doesn't remember much about her mom, but her mom used to read to her every single night. It was their special time together. He paused, and Maya could see the emotion in his eyes. After my wife passed, Lily struggled. She was sad, confused, angry. But the one thing that always helped was reading together. Those books became our way to connect. And I realized that not every kid has that. Some kids don't have anyone to read to them. Some kids don't have books at home. And those are the kids who fall behind, who start thinking they're not smart, who give up. Maya nodded. That's exactly what I see every Saturday at the community center. Kids who are so bright and curious, but they've been told they're slow readers or bad at school, and they start believing it. So tell me, Alexander leaned forward, if you had unlimited resources and support, how would you change that? And just like that, the interview stopped feeling like an interview. It became a conversation. Maya started talking about her ideas. Mobile literacy vans that could go to neighborhoods without libraries. After-school programs where high school students could earn credit for tutoring younger kids. Parent workshops to help families who wanted to support their kids but didn't know how. She talked about the importance of having books that showed kids who looked like them, living lives like theirs. She talked about making reading fun instead of a chore. She pulled out her notes and showed Alexander the research she'd done on successful literacy programs in other cities. Alexander listened to everything, asking questions, adding ideas, and taking notes on his tablet. An hour passed, then another. Linda poked her head in once to check if they needed anything, saw them deep in conversation, and quietly closed the door again. You've really thought about this, Alexander said finally. This is impressive, Maya, really impressive. I care about it, Maya said simply. These kids deserve someone who believes in them, someone who shows up consistently and doesn't give up on them. Like you do every Saturday, Alexander said. It's the best part of my week, Maya admitted. Even when I'm exhausted from working, even when I'm stressed about money or school, those kids make it all worth it. Seeing them sound out a word they couldn't read last week, or finish a whole book by themselves for the first time. There's nothing better than that. Alexander was quiet for a moment, studying her. Maya, I'm going to be honest with you. I've interviewed 12 people for this position. People with master's degrees in education. People who've run programs for years. And not one of them understood this work the way you do. Maya's heart started pounding. I'd like to offer you the position, Alexander continued. Starting salary of $65,000, full health benefits, 2 weeks paid vacation, and funding for you to continue your education. The foundation will cover your tuition if you want to finish your degree. Maya couldn't breathe. She literally couldn't make her lungs work for a moment. You're serious? She whispered. Completely serious. I want you to build this program, Maya. I want you to bring your ideas to life. You'll have a team, a budget, and complete support from me and the board. Alexander smiled. What do you say? Maya thought about her 2 jobs, the constant exhaustion, the worry about money. Every single day, she thought about her tiny apartment and her $5 and that humiliating blind date. She thought about all the times she'd felt invisible, worthless, like nothing she did mattered. And then she thought about the kids, the ones waiting for her every Saturday, the ones who needed someone to believe in them. Yes, Maya said, tears streaming down her face. Yes, I accept. Thank you. Thank you so much. Alexander stood up and reached across the table to shake her hand. Welcome to the Chen Foundation, Maya. I think you're going to do amazing things here. 2 weeks later, Maya walked into her new office at the Chen Foundation and still couldn't believe it was real. She had to keep pinching herself. The office had windows that looked out over the city, a real desk with a computer that actually worked fast, and a whole bookshelf waiting to be filled with resources. She'd given her notice at both her jobs. Her manager at the grocery store had been disappointed but happy for her. Her boss at the diner had actually hugged her and said she'd always known Maya was destined for something better. The hardest part had been leaving the Saturday kids at the community center. But when she'd told them she was starting a job where she'd be helping even more kids learn to read, they'd all cheered. One little boy had made her a card that said, "You're the best techer ever," with a backwards R. She'd taped it to her new office wall. Maya spent her first week meeting the team, learning the systems and diving into the Foundation's current programs. There was so much potential here, so many ways they could expand and improve. Her head was spinning with ideas. On Friday afternoon, there was a knock on her office door. Alexander stood there with Lily holding his hand. "Got a minute?" he asked. Lily wanted to see your office. Of course. Maya stood up and Lily immediately ran in, looking at everything. "Wow, you have so many books already," Lily said, examining the shelf where Maya had started organizing her reference materials. "Can I look at them?" "Sure," Maya said. "The ones on the bottom shelf are picture books. Those are for when I need inspiration or want to remember what it's like to be a beginning reader." Lily pulled out a copy of Where the Wild Things Are and grinned. "Our favorite." Alexander leaned against the doorframe, watching them. "So, how's your first week been?" "Overwhelming?" "Completely overwhelming," Maya admitted. "But in the best way. There's so much I want to do I don't even know where to start." "You'll figure it out, and you've got a great team to help you." Alexander paused. "Listen, tomorrow is the Foundation's Volunteer Appreciation Picnic. It's a family event at the park, lots of kids and games and food. Would you like to come? It would be a good chance to meet our volunteers and some of the families we work with." "I'd love to," Maya said without hesitation. "Perfect. It starts at 11. I can pick you up if you need a ride?" Maya almost said yes, but then she smiled. "Actually, I just got my first paycheck. I think I can manage bus fare now." Alexander laughed. "Fair enough. But the offer stands if you change your mind." Saturday morning was beautiful, warm and sunny with a light breeze. Maya took the bus to Riverside Park and found the picnic area easily. There were colorful balloons tied to trees, folding tables loaded with food, and kids running everywhere. She spotted Lily immediately. The little girl was playing tag with a group of other children, her pigtails flying behind her as she ran. When she saw Maya, she sprinted over at full speed. "Maya, you came. Come meet my friends." For the next hour, Maya was pulled from activity to activity. She helped set up the reading corner, met dozens of volunteers and families, and listened to kids tell her about their favorite books. She felt more at home here than she had anywhere in a long time. During lunch, she found herself sitting at a picnic table with Alexander while Lily ate with her friends nearby. "You're a natural at this," Alexander observed, watching Maya talk with a group of parents about their kids' reading progress. "You fit right in." "This is what I love," Maya said. "Not sitting in an office, but being out here with the families, hearing their stories, understanding what they need. That's exactly why I hired you." Alexander took a sip of his lemonade. "Maya, can I ask you something personal?" "Sure," Maya said, a little nervous. "That night at the restaurant, when I saw you sitting there with that guy who couldn't even be bothered to look at you, what made you volunteer at the community center in the first place?" Maya was quiet for a moment, watching the kids play. "When I was little, we didn't have much money. My mom worked 3 jobs to keep us fed and housed. I spent a lot of time at the library because it was free and they had air conditioning." She smiled at the memory. "There was a librarian there, Mrs. Johnson. She noticed I was there every day and she started recommending books to me. She'd save the new ones for me to read first. She made me feel special, like I mattered. Like even though we were poor, I could still dream big." "She changed your life," Alexander said softly. "She did. And when I got old enough, I wanted to be that person for someone else. I wanted to make some kid feel the way Mrs. Johnson made me feel." Maya looked at Alexander. That's why I can't let this job be just a job, you know? These kids are counting on us. Alexander nodded, and there was something in his expression that Maya couldn't quite read. My wife Michelle would have really liked you. You remind me of her in a lot of ways. She had that same passion, that same drive to help others no matter what. I wish I could have met her, Maya said honestly. Me too. Alexander was quiet for a moment.
Can I tell you something?
I almost didn't interfere that night at the restaurant. I almost just let you handle your own situation. But Lily saw you sitting there looking sad, and she said, Daddy, we should help her. And I realized my daughter was right. He looked over at Lily, who was now organizing some kind of elaborate game with the other kids. Michelle taught me that life's too short to walk past someone who needs help, that we're all connected, and when we help each other, we all rise together. He turned back to Maya. So thank you for letting me help, and for taking a chance on this job. Thank you for seeing something in me that I didn't see in myself, Maya said, feeling her eyes get watery. Lily ran over, breathless and excited. Maya, we're going to do a big reading circle. Will you read to everyone, please? Maya looked at Alexander, who nodded encouragingly. Go ahead. Show them what you've got. Maya spent the next 30 minutes sitting on a blanket surrounded by children, reading story after story in different voices, making them laugh and gasp and beg for one more chapter. The parents sat nearby, some wiping away tears as they watched their kids fall in love with reading. When it was finally time to pack up, Alexander found Maya helping clean up the reading corner. Hey, he said, this might be forward, but would you want to get coffee sometime? Not a work meeting, not a professional development thing, just coffee. Two people getting to know each other. Maya looked up at him, surprised. Are you asking me on a date? I am, if that's okay. And if it's not, we can completely forget I said anything and keep things professional. I don't want to make you uncomfortable. Maya thought about that awful blind date 2 weeks ago, sitting in that restaurant with $5 in her purse, feeling worthless and invisible. She thought about how much her life had changed since then, how this man and his daughter had seen her when no one else did. It's definitely okay, Maya said, smiling. I'd love to get coffee with you. Alexander's whole face lit up. Yeah? That's great. How about Tuesday after work? It's a date, Maya said. As she rode the bus home that evening, watching the city pass by through the window, Maya thought about everything that had happened. She thought about how close she'd come to canceling that blind date, to never going to that restaurant at all. Sometimes the worst moments led to the best things. Sometimes sitting at the table next to someone changed your entire life. Sometimes $5 and a disaster of a date turned into a dream job, a new family, and maybe even love. Maya pulled out her phone and opened her banking app, something she'd been too scared to do for years. But now with her new salary, she had a real paycheck. She had savings for the first time in her adult life. But more importantly, she had purpose. She had kids who needed her. She had a little girl who drew her pictures and wanted to read with her. She had a man who saw her heart before he saw anything else. She had hope. And sometimes hope was worth more than all the money in the world.